Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Mike Yost, MESA President, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our annual member meeting. Thank you for being here with us today. We're going to take less than the next hour to give you an overview of where we are as an association, what we've been up to, where we are heading, and we will take your questions as part of that and look forward to interacting with all of our members, no matter where you are in the world. Um, Before we get started with the content itself, just want to inform you on how to participate today. If you use the orange box with the white arrow in it at the top of your GoToWebinars screen, you can open and close your panel. In that panel, you'll see an area where you can submit questions in the questions box, and all the questions that you submit today, we will go through them at the end of our discussion time, which we expect to be about 30 minutes or so of presenting, and then we'll interact with you as many questions as you have. So feel free to enter any questions that you have for any of the panelists in there, and we will respond at the end. And also to let you know that the presentation is being recorded and it will be posted in the MESA resource library for you to view at a later date. So quickly to cover the agenda, what we'll be talking about here, as I mentioned before, my name is Mike Yost. I'm the operational leader of the association. I'll take just a few minutes to position where we are and introduce MESA as an association and some of the things that I see from my vantage point, being from an operations perspective. And then we will turn it over to our leadership from our treasurer, Jimmy Asher. Will talk about our financials, where we are financially, and then we'll have our board leaders give an overview of what each of the boards is doing. Our international board of directors and both the Americas and EMEA boards. Unfortunately, our international chairman is not able to join us today, so I will be presenting that session. Our Americas board of directors will be presented by Eric Nistad, the vice chair of the Americas board, and our EMEA board of directors discussion will be led by Mr. Uffe Kuipers, who is the chairman of the EMEA board. So as I mentioned, I expect this to take about 30 minutes or so for us to go through our content. Feel free to ask questions in the question box, and we will answer them with you as we get through this content here. So very quickly, from a MESA perspective, our mission has not changed. We continue to position ourselves as we have for many, many years as living at the intersection between manufacturing and information technologies. And our focus is always to find the business value associated there. We continue to focus on building bridges of understanding so that we can drive clarity on how and why people would use modern information technologies in manufacturing operations, and whether that comes from specific plant-centric deployments or it has implications from a larger enterprise supply chain perspective. MESA still carves out that role of really bringing these two worlds together. We have focused from our inception in the early 1990s as a nonprofit industry association, and our focus is always to provide a safe, non-commercial environment where industry professionals can meet, work together, and get their biggest opportunities or biggest challenges out so that we can share that share knowledge, share the scars, share the best practices of how people can move forward together. And again, I think it's probably the biggest strength of MESA has always been the fact that it is a safe place for people to come and drive these types of conversations to bring value back to everybody's individual business. I like to use this slide to sort of illustrate the operating model, if you will, of MESA. If we think about what we do and how we operate, we really, from the bottom of the slide there, speak with the voice of industry's practitioners. So that's all of us that are on the line here today, which represent many, many different industries, different size companies, different roles, different geographies. And through MESA and through the operating structure that we have through our bylaws and the way we handle ourselves gives us the way to come together, to network, to establish peer-to-peer relationships, to create content, share best practices. We wrap that up in a process we call our points of view. So to give that non-commercial, third-party, unbiased view of many different challenges in industry, from the MESA perspective, and then a formal education program that we launched a number of years ago and continue to expand and see significant value in. All of those areas work toward that ultimate goal of helping people understand. There used to be a great big technological divide between the plants and the enterprise. There are much less of a gap today with regard to technology in that aspect, but absolutely still areas that we need to work on from an education and understanding perspective. So just quickly from my perspective, positioned that way and operating this way, I can tell you I'm now coming into my halfway through my 6th year in this role, and MESA is getting more attention than ever, and that is from a number of different reasons, but whether it's the Internet of Things, the industrial IoT, smart manufacturing, and Industry 4.0, there are a number of drivers that are driving people toward manufacturing and trying to understand that value that we've been working to articulate and help spread and evangelize for the past 25 years. So people are seeing value in the space, and they're seeing value in us. And when I say us, it's all of us. It's not MESA as a group of leaders. It's not MESA as a bunch of sponsors. It is the MESA community globally that people see value in. So hopefully everybody that is on the line here today is recognizing that your importance to your organization and to the broader manufacturing community is significantly important. And from the point where I sit, I get to see that more and more all the time. This past year, as you'll see here in just a minute, as I pass the discussion over to our treasurer, Jimmy Asher, we spent the last couple of years shoring up our finances. We are ready to invest much more heavily from an education perspective, both with new content development, new delivery options and such. We are also ready to drive growth in regions around the world. And from my perspective internally, we are ready to support operationally as the value of MESA and the value of all of you is more broadly recognized and takes us into new places and new topic areas. So I'm excited to introduce the crew and get out of the way and let everybody tell you what's been going on. And so again, I would just tell you to put in any questions that you have. And with that, I will ask Jimmy Asher, the treasurer of MESA, to come on the line and take us through the financials review. Are you with us, Jimmy?
I am. Thank you for that introduction, Mike. So as Mike Yost said, if there are any questions as I go through the financial review, please include them in the chat window, and then we'll respond to them in the Q&A section. Go ahead and advance to the next slide for me, Mike. So first of all, I want to say that 2016 was a good year for MESA in a couple of different avenues. One, we set a growth target for MESA of nearly 16% over top of 2015. And when I say growth, large portion of that comes from our membership base as well as the global education program that we have. And the good news is, from a treasurer's perspective, we were very close to that growth goal. So looking at diving into the financials a little bit, we ended up the year in 2016 with a net income of $64,000. Some contributors from an income perspective are membership and sponsorships. Again, with that growth over top of 2015 to 2016, we realized 97% of our membership targets. Kind of dive in a little bit deeper into the numbers. We have 90% of our Keystone memberships achieved, and then we offset that by 107% growth with inside of solution providers and manufacturer producers. GEP is also a significant source of revenue for us, and we were over our target by 110% from revenues from our education program. That left us in a net cash position for the year of $352,000 and a very strong target. Next slide. So looking at that cash on hand, ending up at the year, this is a 7-year comparison of where we end up typically at the end of the years. And you can see that last year was the highest cash on hand place that we've been in the past 7 years. So very strong position. Again, we have a goal of having $180,000 reserve cash on hand so that we can meet with operational targets in a safe hold. Next slide. So talking about where we're going for 2017, first thing is we have a slight modest increase within inside of our income targets, comprised of 68% revenue coming from membership, nearly 30% or 28% coming from the GEP, and then 3% coming from the North America Conference, and then just under 1% with regards to other sources of revenue. These could be sponsored white papers, surveys, things of that nature. Looking at the expense section, two things you'll notice is the operational expense of nearly 40%, marketing and promotion at 5%, website at 3%, and the North America Conference at 4%. As Mike Yost alluded to at the top of the session, GEP expense in 2017 is projected to be 45% of our budget. Now, this number is higher in 2017 than it is traditionally in the past, and that represents a significant increase within inside of the spend to create new content and delivery mechanisms for our GEP program. Looking at the summary of the overall budget for 2017, we're going to end up with an income of just over $1 million and an expense of 1.1, slightly higher than our income. So we're actually going to take some of those cash reserves that we have from 2016 that we've built up and bring them down a little bit. Again, putting that revenue into growth areas for us. So again, MESA is a nonprofit. It means that we can make money, but we would like to invest that money back into the organization to provide the industry a greater position with inside of thought leadership, education, and different venues. Next slide. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate that. And as I mentioned at the top, I am not the International Board chairman who would traditionally do these updates, but I will pinch hit here. And just one point before leaving Jimmy, and again, I would offer anybody to throw in any questions that you have with regards to the finance. Jimmy has been our treasurer for the last number of years and has really done a good job of understanding where we are and where we're going. He mentioned that we are a nonprofit. We're not out here just trying to make money, but we are trying to raise money to support our mission. So as long as we are generating income and using that income to support our overall mission, then we are in good position with that regard, and so we continue to drive that, and Jimmy has done a fantastic job for us and continues to do a fantastic job driving us on the finance side, so we appreciate that, Jimmy. Just very quickly from the International Board's perspective, I mentioned at the top that Mesa's strength is that we're a safe harbor of industry professionals that all part of a non-commercial, non-threatening way for us to share knowledge and tackle complex problems. Our board works at the international board level, works more on the strategy in the oversight of the association overall, looking at the market dynamics, because the reality is that manufacturers can't simply focus on the problem that's right ahead of them today. By the time they meet those challenges, a whole new set of challenges will present themselves, and you'll continually be chasing after the problem that's currently right in front of you. So what that means for all of us is that manufacturing is now part of the strategic and business discussions, and MESA is a place where those worlds come together. So this slide was actually put together by our chairman, and that's really what I think he's trying to drive when he talks about strength to strength. We've been here for 2.5 decades. We leverage that model. We leverage all of you and encourage more of you to get involved and work to support that. Jimmy pointed out that the membership is growing and that the focus is really through educating people, focusing on those bridges of understanding I talked about before. And the technical committees, that may to many folks be a bit of a misnomer. It's not so much that there's a lot of technical work. We're not developing standards and things like that, but it is a technology space that we play in. And those committees, all of our working groups that create content for MESA, roll up in under our technical committees. And we have a governance structure that not only ensures that the content creation process works properly, that it is non-commercial, that we handle everything. Obviously, we have structure and bylaws in place where we have potential competitors and people from similar industries. So we have to protect confidentiality and protect against anything that could potentially go wrong in those areas. So to bring the community together in that way, to share best practices, to generate the content that we do, that all happens through the technical committee structure that we have, and we have had for 2 decades plus. So it's really been a strength of MESA's, and it continues to be. And actually, those 2 points, if I was drawing an illustration here, those 2 points would feed directly into each other. The technical committees, which are creating our content, which are engaging our membership overall, and then are driving back in through the formal education program, our GEP. So you can really look at everything that MESA does as being an element of education, but there is a level of formality that we see as important to continue to invest in, as Jimmy mentioned, that basically takes that content, rolls in through the education program and out the door as formal content. So again, we do believe that we are unique in the industry, been around for the time that we have been around, and been successful because we have had some of the points I mentioned before as far as being non-commercial and such. We are financially strong, and we continue to rally around things that underpin our strategy, such as we have chosen to use the terminology of smart manufacturing as the general umbrella for what some people may refer to as the Industrial Internet of Things or Industry 4.0 or any number of different initiatives like digitizing manufacturing and such. From our perspective, we've aligned with the terminology of smart, and then we have working groups that are plugged into that structure I mentioned a minute ago that are trying to define that, and not only define that, the exercise of defining smart or defining anything like that in and of itself doesn't bring value to our members, and that's not what we're striving to do, is simply define things from an academic perspective. We are working to not only define them, but make them actionable. How do we share best practices? How do we get people started? How do we take people where they are and move them to the next level? How do we talk a common language, a common vocabulary? How do we even agree on the basics of what the value is of even starting such a journey? So all of those things are under the banner of smart manufacturing. The metrics that matter, MESA has had an industry leadership position for over a decade when it comes to metrics. And that was driven not as a strategic initiative from the board of directors and driving that down a decade ago, but really from our membership saying, I need to be able to quantify, I need to know what metrics I should be looking at. Obviously, people are in different industries and different geographies and stuff. So how do we come together, put together a framework? And so that's where we started a number of years ago, interacting with industry and driving that. And now we'll see, if you look on our website, the metrics working group that has been driving that for us all this time has now evolved into the analytics working group. So obviously today we're talking about going from the core metrics that are important to us to the bigger play of analytics and the advances that are happening there. Again, very powerful position for us to be in needing to understand that and drive value to that, and we continue to invest there as a strategic underpinning of the association from the international board's perspective. Obviously, I mentioned Industry 4.0 a minute ago, which comes driven out of Germany. There are initiatives in the U.S. There are initiatives in just about every country around the world right now, and we are actively involved some areas specifically, and some areas more broadly, of engaging with governments and seeing how MESA can support the efforts for them to bolster up their national economy through investment into their manufacturing operations. Last month, there was an event that was led by Dr. Nance Seshan, who is chairman of MESA's Asset Performance Management Working Group, partnered up with the Indian government and ran a full day smart manufacturing session in Chennai, India. We were also engaged heavily here in the United States with the Smart Manufacturing Leadership Coalition and positioning with the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Institute that was just launched in January. So there are a number of things from that perspective where we're actively involved. And the primary thing I would say from a member perspective to understand is that what we're offering and what we're bringing there is nothing different than the slides I showed at the top of the webcast. It is the core value of you as members contributing to the dialogue, creating content, creating education, and moving people forward together. So we believe we can take that model and go anywhere with any governmental interaction or governmental initiative that's out there, and take our model and continue to build off of it. Speaking of going to other parts of the world, we have currently 2 regional boards, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, or EMEA, as well as the Americas boards, and we are working and expect sometime later this year to be able to announce an Asia Pacific board, as there's a lot of growing interest there and our ability to work in that part of the world more deliberately with a governing body for MESA. So to wrap up the international board's perspective, we encourage people to get involved. So if being involved means that you are in the association and a consumer of the content, that's fantastic, but also the opportunity to contribute to have your voice be part of the greater MESA voice. There's never been a better time, and so we encourage all of you to do that and to invite others into the conversation as well. So that's a wrap from the international perspective. So now we'll hear from our Americas board and then the EMEA board. So I will turn it over to Mr. Eric Nistad. Eric, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Mike. Thanks very much, Mike, for turning it over. Can we just go to the next slide, please? All right, and you can build out the builds, Megan, as well, Randy. So first of all, hello, everyone, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of MESA's Americas Board. I want to start off by talking about, reaffirming the Americas Board exists to advance the mission and the strategies set by the International Board across the Americas region, while also advancing the knowledge and capabilities of the manufacturing solutions and technologies across the overall industry within the Americas region as well. As you can see by the logos on this page, the Americas Board really is comprised of a good mix of manufacturers, solution providers, and integrators, people that are the top of the thought leaders in the industry and extremely passionate about MESA and its objectives to educate and advance the capabilities of the industry. These members as well are key critical support and participants in many of the technical committees and working groups, and are key contributors and leaders of some of our key committees that run run the organization around education, membership, and marketing. So point here is that we've got a great mix of people, industry expertise, solution provider expertise, integrators, all coming together with the top thought leadership to advance the agenda of expanding knowledge and advancing the capabilities of the overall manufacturing industry across the Americas. Next slide, please. So now I want to spend just a couple minutes talking about a couple of the key focus areas for 2017 for the Americas. First of all, a key objective really is to promote and ensure a valuable and successful 2017 North American Conference. As you see on the picture here, this is a conference that's going to be held in Cleveland, Ohio this year in May. MESA owns the Smart Manufacturing track within this conference, and we have assembled some fantastic sessions to help participants to start or advance their smart manufacturing journey. Also this year, we're introducing some targeted, what we're calling fix events. You may have seen in email, et cetera, around these topics, around these fix events. But they're intended to have, to bring together groups of like-minded companies and people to discuss specific challenges and offer real solutions and answers on how to make progress based on the experiences across the group. Our other focus area is the continued promotion and evolution of MESA's global education program and certification activities. We believe this is one of the best ways to advance the capability of the manufacturing industry by leveraging all that MESA knows. This is one of the biggest draws for companies that are connecting with MESA and advance their own capabilities. And as Mike mentioned earlier, it's a key component of our involvement with organizations such as the Smart Manufacturing Leadership Coalition and the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Institute. We have, tons of experience, expertise, knowledge bases, training materials, education materials that we can use to really advance the objectives of the organization and the industry. We plan to leverage that as best we can across the Americas. Next slide, please. And then first of all, from a call to action perspective, what is the Americas board passionate about and need help with? Well, first of all, we want people to come to the North American Conference. This is a place where you can interact and meet members of the board. You can interact with the working group members, participate in these fix events I just mentioned, and overall interact with like-minded people to support you on the journey to smart manufacturing excellence. The second thing, or the second call here is really around getting educated. Leverage MESA to ensure you and your teams are up to speed on the latest trends and technologies across the manufacturing industry. And you can do that directly through our global education programs and events that are happening across the region. And last and third is really to get involved. We really need folks. There's a lot of new members joining the organization. It's a great opportunity to join a working group or a committee. There's so many opportunities that can cater to your own organizations or your own personal interests. It's a great way to expand your network by sharing your own expertise and experiences while returning value to your organization and to yourself. And for myself, this is a key reason that I've been involved with MESA for well over 5 years now. It's been a great opportunity by getting involved to really participate and connect with others across the industry and bring a lot of value and a lot of opportunity back to my own company, my own organization. So it's a great opportunity, and really look forward to seeing you all at the conference, and as well answer any questions and help folks find their way into some of our working groups and committee activities if so interested and inclined. All right, so thanks for listening, and let me turn it over to my colleague Uwe Keppers now from the EMEA board to give an update on the EMEA board activities. Thanks, Uwe.
Thank you very much, Eric. Welcome, everyone, and just doing a short update on the EMEA board review, if we can go to the next slide. We have been discussing in the beginning of 2016, what are the goals we're targeting on, what are the board activities we want to focus on, and as you can see here is focusing on revitalizing the European local groups. So how do we extend our local groups? So maybe just give you a little background on that. Within the EMEA region, as we have different languages and different cultures strongly being in each individual region, we defined right from the beginning that we have so-called special interest groups, which are focusing on a specific region, like a country itself, so that the countries by itself being able of talking in their local language, addressing their local issues for their country and for their specific industries, and turning that back into the region of the EMEA. So therefore, we are trying to extend the local regions in that way that we say we wanted to add Italy and UK. Also, an additional point is getting more into engagements into events like industry events, like with groups like the ARC or with the ISA or European Manufacturing Summits, etc. The other goal we have set is that we sign up new manufacturers and sponsors membership, as well as that we focus on the global education program and secure the success of these programs. Additional to that is how do we position the role of MES or manufacturing operation management in context to local industry initiatives like Industry 4.0 or the French version being mentioned in here. And how do we secure that connecting the regions of these special interest groups more to the EMEA point as well as to the MESA international part in that. So that was what was set as a goal for us, and now let's see how we achieved that in the last year. So how do we do that? If we go to the next slide there, we facilitating and holding and promoting MESA meetings by country, local regions. What you see here is a picture, for example, of one of our conference, which we did, where we do basically share best practices, where we share context which came out of the technical groups, where we talk about what is the benefit of the global education program, and the members of these special interest groups and participations of these special interest groups then share as well what do they want to discuss, what is of their interest. Then having MESA presence on industry events, focusing on certain events where we participated and promote MESA membership and the global education program. And we started also to discuss how to enable the special interest group to be more regional focused and extending stronger footprint through third-party companies. So what that means is, how can we have in regions where there's not that much volunteers yet available, providing someone, enable someone to really build this up as a third-party company, and we're trying to do that in the Middle East and starting with that in the Middle East. We also partner up with other groups like the Club MES in France, which is very strongly connected in the French area, and therefore we said it doesn't make sense that we really build up a special interest group of MESA in France, but better partnering up with the Club MES and sponsoring the global education trainings wherever is possible from our side in the regions. So if we go to the next slide, we basically see the accomplishments we achieved last year. So we participated in the ARC Industry Forum, we participated in the European Manufacturing Summit, we participated in an event in Belgium from ABIS, and we established the special interest group in Italy as well as the UK, which already had 2 sessions, and the next one is actually coming up right now in next month. Then we continue to have strong sessions in the special interest group in Germany, in Austria, in France, in Ireland, where regular sessions are being held. I would say we have very active special interest groups in the Middle East and Africa, where basically, like in the Middle East, 10 events per year are being driven, as well as Africa, where South Africa has been renamed to Africa to enlarge their focus as well and help us driving this. So on the pictures, you see some of the activities we have done, same as in the previous slide, where we see what has been done. So additional accomplishments we reached in 2016 when we look into the global education program. If we go to the next slide, there we see that we had a very good growth in the global education program in EMEA. 75% of all COAs were done in EMEA, as well as 73% of all COCs were done in EMEA. And the benefit, obviously, or I would say we have in EMEA there, is that in Africa and SOURCE, the global education program is being recognized as a personal continuing education program. So that means the people really not only benefit from the content, but also from their personal education in this. And that obviously helps in driving this in that way. But we want to continue to drive that. And we always receive very strong feedback after the global education session, where very often we hear, if we would have known that context before, we would have done the training earlier. So therefore, I really encourage everyone to look to the global education program, see what benefit you get out of that, and please register and see and spread the message within your organization. We also triggered a third-party agent policy. That was what I mentioned before. What we do with the Middle East is a first point there, to really have an agent working for us to increase MESA activity in new regions, not just from an event perspective, but also getting the new members and therefore new volunteers, which are then working with us and building the organization in a stronger way. We are also participating in the German Central Association for the Industry in the working group MES to also secure cross-references in there. So what we look into when we go to the next slide, what are the visions we have set for ourselves for 2017, is we want to continue, extend our local footprint, by that re-establishing or revitalizing our special interest group in the Benelux and starting new ones in Scandinavia, and building a new partnership in Finland, to continue participating in industry events. We already have the ASC event coming up. We already signed up again for the European Manufacturing Summit in Berlin, and we will participate in Production Temps Real in Switzerland, and there's more and more events to come up where we share our knowledge in these events and been partnering with the event organizer to promote MESA in a stronger way and share the knowledge and share the benefit companies can get out of MESA, as Eric has mentioned before. Obviously, continuing to sign up new manufacturers and sponsor members, continue to promote the GEP events, and position the role of MES future strong within the initiative of Industry 4.0 and the French version of that, as well as whenever we identify other activities in other countries, we'll work on working in this area as well. The other point, what we want to have, what we're focusing on, is that the special interest group in the regions, in the individual countries, will feedback stronger to the EMEA board so that we can make the link between the special interest group stronger, share that experience which has been made on each local group, and share that and bring that into content provider for the technical committees as well, initialize maybe new technical committees and having people more actively participate in these committees, because also, as Eric said, there's a great value because you have your peers there and being able of gaining knowledge from others in that direction. So if we go to the next slide, the call to action from our side is really, I encourage you to get engaged with the local group, get in contact with them. If you go on the website, you see the individual areas, how to connect to us. Otherwise, just send me an email if you have any issues on there. Tell us when and who you would like to meet in your region and your language. What is your focus area? What you want to focusing on? What drives you? What challenges you? And how we can help you? How you want us to participate in your events? And if there's any need on training, please let us know so that we can work in that way to stronger together with you. So this was it from my side, from the EMEA board, and with that, I hand it back to Mike, please.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen, all of you. As Uwe said, we'll move in now. We have a couple questions that came in, so we'll answer those and basically offer this as your opportunity to put any more questions in that you have. Just two things quickly. Before we do that, just a reminder, takeaway here is currently on MESA.org. You can go and, as Eric mentioned, the North American Conference is less than a month away from us. So we encourage people to be there, to contribute, and it's really our opportunity in the U.S. to meet face to face at a minimum once a year and bring the whole body together there. So I encourage you to be there. We do offer discounted rates from the overall conference. We are co-located within the Industry Week Manufacturing and Technology Conference, and so joining as a MESA member gets you the MESA track as well as the entire Industry Week conference and keynotes and offsites events and all that sort of stuff as well. So certainly encourage you to be there and be a part of that. There's also the submissions for our second annual Smart Story Awards program, which we started last year, which goes back to an earlier point that I had raised about making sure that we have common understanding of the value for types of investments and solutions that are delivered in this space. And so that is an initiative we started last year to capture that and make sure that your story gets told, again, in a non-commercial, best practices type way. So, and I guess one thing that jumped out at me throughout the course of this was the fact that I, in my role, I get paid to be here, but the other folks that you've heard talking today are just like yourselves. They are volunteers. So MESA is a all-volunteer organization with the exception of the headquarters staff, which includes me. We are here to help from an operational perspective, but everybody else is a volunteer. That's an important point because I know everybody that's part of this right now is busy. If you're in manufacturing or near manufacturing, you are a problem solver and you are a busy problem solver. And so the thought of taking more things on is often daunting. And all of the people here, as well as all of the board members and the committee leaders and active participants, are in the same boat as you. And I think that's the point, that we're all in the same boat and we are rowing together to drive value for all of us. So I appreciate everything, gentlemen, all three of you have done here in all of the leadership that you provide, but being here with us again today. So one question that did came up in going through the presentations had to do with the regional SIGs that you mentioned, Uwe, and the fact that we didn't see any discussion of that in the U.S. So maybe, Uwe, if you could talk just quickly about the success that MESA has in supporting regional activities outside of the U.S., and then Eric, maybe we have a quick conversation on sort of how that works or doesn't work here in the U.S.
Sure. I would say, what we do in the special interest groups in the region is that we basically come together 1 or 2 times per year per region, setting up an agenda where we then have roughly around 40 to 60 people participating, exchanging their interest, doing that more on a mixed way of presenting news things, news white papers, for example, which came out of the technical groups, or interesting topics the group were asking for, and then really workshop sessions where people connecting with each other, discussing important points of their regions. And we're supporting that from a MESA perspective, from an EMEA perspective as well, that we are actively participating in these activities and having the chairmen of the special interest group driving it. And by that, really getting extremely positive feedback that which shows, based on the travel restrictions being given and the time being given, that a local activities really help to drive these in that way. And that's why also what we're focusing on, bringing that back to the EMEA level so that a greater and bigger exchange can happen on an EMEA base. Does that answer the question, Mike?
I think it does, and I think it points to a number of things. One, from an organization perspective, we're structured to support that and handle that. As Uwe mentioned, it essentially comes down to people that have a need, and typically what we have in those areas as well is that we have a leader who steps forward and says that they are willing to carry us into that area, or to use the MESA structure to facilitate the things that Uwe just talked about. Some of the drivers of language and travel and culture and stuff obviously play in the need to do that more so in Europe than in the U.S., where we have from time to time had a few regional groups pop up, be it in the Midwest or in the Northeast. But I think that we haven't seen that sustain. And again, it would come down to a group of people that said, hey, we see enough of a reason here. We want to get together under the MESA banner and talk specifically about what's important to us in our region. So, Eric, I don't know if there's anything you would add from an America's Board perspective.
Yeah, I think the only comment I'd add to it, Mike, is that beyond what you just said about popping up these regional groups, that some of the things that myself has been involved in specifically around working groups as well, where we have brought together groups of like-minded people on a particular topic and focused on working on challenges and issues. This was the one that I'm very familiar with was the Enterprise Recipe Management Working Group. Was a good example where several companies got together to focus on the approach and the methodology on how we would translate recipes basically from spec systems into automation control systems. So that's an example of how in the Americas we've done more pulling together and focusing on a topic. And I will mention that we are talking now about a food and beverage topic as well. So we'll see if that spawns into more of another kind of working group versus a SIG maybe. But so we're definitely looking for leaders. If there's some specific topics or areas that people want to invest some time in, we'd love to hear about it and see if there's an opportunity again to do this under the MESA banner.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said that better, Eric. So the point of whether it's regionally focused, if there are enough nuances, be they language specific or otherwise, that drive you into a region, we can support that discussion. As Eric mentioned, it's the exact same model when it comes to content as well. So he mentioned the Enterprise Recipe Management Working Group, and that spun out of a group of about a half a dozen manufacturers with a problem around recipe transformation. What do we do about it? And basically used the same structure that Uwe mentioned for driving discussions in a region, and drove it specifically around a topic area. As you mentioned as well, having the same conversations right now from some food producers who are saying, hey, we believe there's some nuances and specific things that are pertinent to us in our industry. Can we take these broader initiatives and see if there's a way to drive them specifically down into our industry? Again, from an operating perspective, we can support all of that. And there was a second question in the chat with regard to how do I get involved? And I'll just comment to say, first, you can contact headquarters at any time, and we are glad to engage and help. But what I often tell people to do is to look at the regional groups, look at the working groups that we have working already today, and you can find them on our website. And those are basically the topic areas that have bubbled up to the point where there is leadership and there is support and there is effort being put toward tackling the problem. So if there are areas there, whether it's enterprise recipe management, it's smart manufacturing, it's metrics, it's asset performance management, it's lean manufacturing, it's any number of the 16 or so working groups that we currently have engaged, get involved there. You can get involved from joining the committees, consuming the content, et cetera. But also, if you take a look at it, because think about how broad the topic area that we represent is, and narrow it down to smart manufacturing, and it's still an enormously huge umbrella. So if you believe that there's a problem area that you see, or an expertise that you have, or a somewhere where you would essentially like to put the MESA machine to work to address a specific area and it's not represented in the existing working groups that we have, then bring them forward to us. That's the way to point the MESA machine at the problems that would bring value to you and to get industry behind you in sharing best practices using this methodology and attacking the problems together. So Eric, that's a perfect example, perfect illustration of the MESA model working. So I appreciate you bringing that up. We don't have any other questions in the queue right now. So I guess I'll just briefly ask if any of you three, Jimmy and Eric and Uwe, if you have any closing comments, anything that you would like to add before we close. Maybe I'll do that in order. So how about Jimmy? Is there anything specifically you would like to add here before we close?
Just that 2016 was a great year for us, and I'm confident that 2017 will be much the same from a financial perspective. And again, what really excites me about our finances is the reinvestment of the monies that we make into the industry and providing additional content for the membership and the industry at large. So I'm looking forward to another fantastic year.
Excellent, I appreciate that, and that triggered a thought of that investment going into our global education program. So I'll just put this final slide up and ask Eric and Uwe. So Eric, do you have any closing thoughts?
The only thoughts for me is I want to say thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk a bit about the Americas Board and what MESA is doing in the Americas, and it really a great opportunity for people to get involved, get educated, and bring value basically both to themselves and to their organization. So, anybody wants to talk about that, feel free to reach out to me anytime, and I'll help them understand my journey here. And I think it's been a great opportunity for me and my company. So, I'd love to have a conversation with anybody that's interested.
Excellent, appreciate that. And Uwe, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
Well, no, I think Eric did say anything. The only thing I want to say is I highly would like to thank everyone who participated as a volunteer last year on the work in MESA, in the EMEA board, and in the EMEA activities. Really looking forward for the next year coming up and achieving great results again and providing the needed value for everyone who's looking for it.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that, and I would simply say myself in closing here that I've spent 30 years in manufacturing, the last 25 specifically on the the solutions side, and been working for a long time to really get to the point where we are today. And you may not be able to see it from where you're sitting, and I feel very fortunate to be in the position where I am, in that a lot of the value proposition that we've been talking about for a long time is still the core value that people are looking to deliver. And again, I think the audience that's paying attention to what we're doing, the value for all of you and in all of you is significant, and so I see it over and over and over again. And so I would just encourage everybody to stay involved. I'm sorry, I was just about to close. There was one final question that came in here that just asked, how, if at all, does MESA interact with NIST, the MEP, Network Centers, and Manufacturing USA Institutes? So that is a US-based question, and I will answer that directly because I am personally involved with Manufacturing USA. That was previously known as the NEMIs, the National Network for Manufacturing Innovation Institutes. MESA is actively helped the team that ended up winning the bid for becoming the latest institute, the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Institute. I personally and MESA overall was active in creating the bid that won that, and we are actively working to show those leaders currently how the framework that we have, the assets that we have, the vision that we have can all be leveraged so that we don't end up with either conflicting or competing deliverables. So this whole pool of value that MESA brings is, I think, valuable to the mission of all of those organizations. Exactly where the MEPs fit is we're still working on exactly how that works out, but certainly we have educational offerings and tools and resources that we think could be utilized by that network. We work closely with NIST. There was a panel just this week at the NIST facility, which I unfortunately had to back out of, but NIST is active within our working groups, and we are working closely with them as well to figure out exactly how all of the value that we can bring to industry overall can work with all of those organizations. So that's a great question. I apologize that I didn't dig in deeper to that earlier, but I guess that's where we stand when it comes to the institutes overall. So very excited about what that holds for all of us. Again, very excited, as Jimmy mentioned, and the others, of where we are, where we're going. Very thankful for everybody who's been a part of this today. And I will go ahead and close the webinar now, let you get back with your day. And again, thank you very much. Take care.